Today's been an extremely busy news day in the world of hockey. We got further updates on how the NHL teams may be impacted regarding their cap space, everything regarding the 5 players facing charges in the 2018 World Junior investigation. We also have updates as well regarding some trade rumors on the Montreal Canadiens, Detroit Red Wings, Ottawa Senators, as well as the New York Rangers and the Anaheim Ducks. We also have word that Evgeny Kuznetsov will be away from the Capitals for an extended time. DJ Smith has found new employment as well, and lots more updates regarding injuries and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, it's been an extremely busy day of news around the world of hockey and in the NHL. Of course, we had the big update earlier today regarding the London Police Force investigation. Of course, they held a press conference at 2 o'clock Eastern time today. I do have a dedicated, lengthy video discussing the whole case and everything that was discussed in that press conference, plus some other news regarding the courts and the hearing that took place in London this morning as well. We got that news information from Rick Westhead and Robin Doolittle earlier this morning. So lots of updates there. We did learn a few more things that we'll kick off the video with some further updates regarding that situation. Of course, what we do know now, because it's been reported this evening by NHL reporters like Darren Dreger, for example, and others, that the teams who have players facing charges, which include the Philadelphia Flyers, New Jersey Devils, and the Calgary Flames, are all going to be given salary cap relief for those players' contracts. Now, we don't know exactly how this is going to work, but it sounds like they're going to be taken off the books, essentially, because they will be allowed to accrue cap space with the remaining money. Of course, it's not a situation like LTIR where you're basically allowed to spend above the cap, but you're not accruing deadline space in that sense. So I think essentially they're going to, transition how they're on the roster, and they won't impact the salary cap at all. So those teams, especially a team like New Jersey, which is probably the team that's mostly heavily rumored to be wanting to add before the deadline and obviously try to make a playoff push here, they will get even more flexibility to make additions and replace the players' salaries that they no longer have because of this legal situation. Obviously, a team like Calgary is heading towards a rebuild, retool, whatever you want to call it, selling off players. We've already seen a few moves out of the Flames, and we're going to see more. And of course, a team like Philly, they're in the playoff hunt, but I'm not sure they're really going to be going out and adding. I don't know if that's really a scenario we're going to see, but either way, those teams will be given some additional salary cap relief, which is, I guess, good for them when it comes to making their playoff push and whatnot. So we also got a statement and some information put out after that press conference earlier this afternoon from Hockey Canada. All it really said was that it fully cooperated with London Police and that all players from that World Junior team that were previously suspended from participating in any kind of Hockey Canada sanctioned events still all remain suspended. I believe that suspension is going through an appeal process, and because it's, a formal process that they have in place, they're not at this point ready to lift the suspension for any specific players, just because the player was on that team but not charged. They're not willing at this point to relieve the suspension. I'm not really sure at what point we'll see that. I'm not sure how long this appeal process is going to take. Now, this Four Nations face-off, the 4-team tournament that's taking place next year, if for some reason that things have not changed in that regard by then, it will not be impacted because that is not a Hockey Canada sanctioned event. That event is put on by the NHL and the NHLPA. So it's a different event. So that's not something that falls under Hockey Canada. So therefore, anybody on that team, like I know Cale Makar's one. Cale Makar was not even at that event. He was on that team, but he wasn't even present. Now, I suppose it doesn't mean he doesn't know anything, but, as far as any involvement goes, he should be cleared in that sense because we know he wasn't there. But at the same time, they're treating this whole team with the same result here for now, and I guess we'll find out, because even like players that are, go to like the World Championships in the spring and stuff, but that don't make the playoffs. Like any of these guys can't do that. So they're going to have to wait. And if it's not resolved by the time we get to the Olympics, because if they're going to wait, for example, until the end of the legal process, that could be a long time. We could get to the 2026 Olympics before that happens. That's quite a possibility. And I'm sure Canada, for example, I just use Makar as an example. I'm not sure if there's anybody else, but Makar is a player they're going to want on that team. And where we know that he wasn't even at the event, it just seems unfair to him to not be able to participate. So we'll see how they handle it. But for as of today, Hockey Canada's statement says they are all still suspended pending that appeal process. So we'll find out more on that. Of course, like I said, I'm not going to get into the other details of that police press conference. I put out a 20-minute video earlier recapping everything that we've learned. But I mean, as of right now, there was a court hearing this morning. The wheels are in motion. No pleas have been entered at this point. Players have been officially charged. They've all been released, and they're allowed to be out in the public right now. They will be released or have been released. But on conditions. I'm not sure what those conditions are, but they didn't have to surrender passports or anything like that. So where a few of them will actually reside currently in the U.S. because of where their hockey teams they were playing for are located. They can go back there too. Like either way, they're fine to do that. So we learned that. We know the victim has cooperated since day one. We know that the London Police Force offered a sincere apology to the victim for things taking so long. And essentially, there was all kinds of other questions that they could not answer because of the fact that they can't compromise the investigation and prosecution of this case. So there's lots of other things that they agreed with the reporters are fully verifiable and questions that deserve answers, but they're just not the time and the place right now. So we didn't learn a ton. We actually learned more from the reports from the court case this morning from the hearing than we learned from the London Police Force. But it is still a remote possibility that other players on the team could be subpoenaed or that they could be called as witness, like subpoenaed to be a witness or anything of that nature. There's also, I guess it seems unlikely, but you can't say 100% that no other player would be charged because they were asked that and they would not answer it. All they said was that they laid all the charges that they felt they had grounds for right now. So I would say most likely, unless new information is something that comes about, then I wouldn't expect there to be any other charges. But we'll see. It's going to be a long, drawn-out process. We're probably going to learn things gradually, and we'll go from there. The victim and some of the anticipated witnesses that might take the stand there's also a publication ban to protect their identities too. So we'll see what more we learn, but definitely a very newsy day in that front. Before we do get into the other news items from around the league and the trade rumors, I do want to acknowledge a couple of other, I guess they're technically news, but other situations that just kind of caught my eye today. One was a longtime NHLer, Hockey Hall of Famer, Lanny McDonald, who's always a big part of the Hockey Hall of Fame induction committee. Apparently had a cardiac event yesterday. There was some stuff posted to his social media confirming that he had a cardiac event. Thankfully, he's okay. He's in hospital and obviously doing all right. So we want to keep Lanny McDonald in our thoughts. Longtime NHL player, like I said, big involvement with the Hockey Hall of Fame. Just an all-around good ambassador for the game and just a very likable person. So we certainly want to keep Lanny in our thoughts. And also, Penguins assistant general manager, former Toronto Maple Leaf, longtime Ottawa Senator, Jason Spezza, posted some news today, very unfortunate family news. It sounds like he's going to be probably taking a little bit of time from the Penguins, but his younger brother, Matthew, suddenly passed away due to an accidental overdose. Matthew, I believe, was, I think 3 years younger than Jason. Matthew was a hockey player as well. He played major junior hockey in the OHL like Jason did. Never had quite the level of success that his brother did. He was a goaltender, but he did get a couple years of major junior in there. Never had a chance to go pro like Jason did. The two were very close. I know back a few years ago when Jason was still playing with the Maple Leafs, when they did one of their mentors trips, he brought his brother Matthew with him. So it's just, he was only 37 years old, so he's still a young man. I know Jason's heartbroken from what he's put out publicly. Like I said, the two were very close, and this seems like a tragic set of circumstances. So certainly, I know he probably won't see this, but certainly want Jason Spezza to know I'm thinking of him. I know he was a player who I watched very closely, especially during his Senators days. I've got his jerseys. He was always one of my favorite players. Absolutely beauty of a player, and always seemed like he was a really good human being as well. And I don't obviously never met him or his brother, but I knew enough about his brother that they were quite close. So this accidental passing here is just it seems very tragic. So certainly keep Jason Spezza in our thoughts here. We also got news regarding several roster moves today, and Evgeny Kuznetsov is going to be away from the Washington Capitals for an extended time. He has entered the player assistance program that's offered through the NHL, NHLPA. We got word this morning that Kuznetsov, or I guess it was probably later in the morning, early afternoon, that Kuznetsov was not at the Capitals practice and that it was for personal reasons, but there would likely be more information coming later today. So I did kind of wonder if maybe this is the road he was heading down, but it's now been officially announced as of the last couple of hours that Kuznetsov has officially entered the program. Of course, it's confidential and private, so we don't really know exactly what he's dealing with, but we do know a lot about Kuznetsov past, what he's dealt with before, and he's had his, publicly speaking that he's talked about, and it's made news before that of what kind of things he's, had struggles with before. So I don't know if it's connected to that. We know he's had a tough time in the last few years, that things have not gone well for him in Washington, wanting a change of scenery, and there's just been a lot of, he just gave off the vibe that he wasn't in a good, happy place. I obviously don't know much about him personally. It just, based on his play, based on interviews you've seen, I guess it was somebody that I think a lot of people was probably had a little bit of concern about. And so let's keep Kuznetsov in our thoughts too, that this program helps him and he gets the help he needs and can make a comeback and eventually he'll get his career back on track. Some other roster moves. The Minnesota Wild today placed Pat Maroon on injured reserve, and that's called up Jake Lucchini to take his spot. The Islanders are playing the Leafs tonight on the first day back after the All-Star break, and they were getting back their top D pair of Adam Pelech and Ryan Pulock, so good to have them back for sure. Jack Hughes has returned skating as well for the Devils, so he's inching closer to a return. The Lightning had a bunch of players pop up at practice today for the first time in a while, but that sounds promising that in the very near future they'll have Tanner Jeannot, Austin Watson, Mikhail Sergachev, Austin Chernak, and Hayden Fleury all returning in the near future. So obviously, good news there for Tampa. Not so good news for their rivals in the Atlantic Division who they're battling for playoff spots. Some other news today as well. It came from Elliotte Friedman and Jeff Merrick's 32 Thoughts podcast. Elliotte Friedman was saying that the Canadian Hockey League, so the CHL, which is the head company that oversees the Canadian Junior League, so your Western League, your OHL, and your Quebec Junior League, which I guess was recently renamed. It was the QMJHL and still is. Used to stand for the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, but of course it's not just Quebec. They've had for some time teams in the Maritime provinces, which is Atlantic Canada, so New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI. They have rebranded a little while back. They're now, the M stands for Maritime, so Quebec and Maritime Junior Hockey League. So those three leagues, of course, are composed of the CHL. The CHL is been having some pretty serious talks, I guess, with the NCAA. That would allow, if this agreement comes together, would allow CHL players, make them eligible to go to school in the States and play in the NCAA hockey when their CHL careers are done. So if they're playing major junior hockey and they're not getting a chance to turn pro, which I would assume they probably take over this. But if not, they if this comes through, will be eligible to go play U.S. college hockey in the NCAA. So that would be a big development. Obviously, a lot of different opportunities education-wise, and obviously when it comes to continuing on and having maybe more of a chance to further their hockey careers. I mean, obviously it would be a big blow for the Canadian university hockey. U Sports in Canada is huge. It's our equivalent of U.S. college hockey, but it's really not the same. Where we have so much major junior hockey, essentially, if you take a look at the where the players, how they move around, a lot of the guys in major junior that don't make it to, or either don't get drafted or don't get signed or whatever, that end up not getting the pro opportunities. A lot of them opt for further education and end up playing Canadian university hockey. I know, I live in a major university town here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, with the UNB team, which has been national champions time after time after time after time. They've been an incredible hockey program here with a wonderful, really awesome head coach, Garner McDougall, who's been kind of garnered a lot of national attention, especially when he recently temporarily took over the St. John Sea Dogs and led them to a Memorial Cup not long ago, and then of course came back to UNB afterwards. But that would have a big impact on those programs, because a lot of players that would go to them may go to the NCAA instead. So we'll see if this comes to be. But from a player perspective, it would be a good opportunity for them to go to the NCAA, which is really, it is a higher level of hockey, and it could still give them a chance to possibly get noticed by NHL clubs more so than Canadian university hockey, and just make it more of an opportunity to further their career. So we'll see. DJ Smith, former head coach of the Ottawa Senators, who was fired just a few months back. I guess that's only been, what has it been now? Just like 20, 25 games now that Jacques Martin has taken over. But he did not have to wait long to find new employment. He's been hired by the Los Angeles Kings to be an assistant coach for the remainder of the current season. Of course, the LA Kings recently let go of head coach Todd McLellan. You could tell Rob Blake, the GM there, did not want to do it, but he felt like he had no choice because the team was spiraling. Blake even made comments suggesting that he understands his own job security could be at risk here if the team doesn't improve. Obviously, DJ has a connection there with the new interim head coach, Jim Hiller, who was already an assistant there and took over from McLellan. Jim Hiller and DJ Smith were both assistant coaches with the Toronto Maple Leafs during the Mike Babcock regime. They worked together and obviously would know each other there. So he brings in DJ Smith to work to cover off the vacant assistant coach position that he leaves behind by becoming the interim head coach. So that's good for DJ. Like I said before, Ottawa needed a change, but DJ Smith is a very likable guy. It just seems like a really good person, good human. So glad to see a good person get another opportunity. And I've seen some comments already saying, especially from the LA side, fan side of things, kind of cringing at the idea that a coach that the Senators fan base couldn't wait to move on from got hired there so quickly. But you got to remember, different role, different team, it's not the same. And he was a well-respected, very successful assistant coach prior to becoming a head coach. He had a great run as a head coach in Major Junior in the OHL. This guy is not necessarily a bad coach. He just wasn't the right coach for that team any longer. So I really think Kings fans should give him a chance. I do think he's, like I said, a good person and a good coach, and hopefully it's the right fit that he can kind of further on his career. On the trade rumor side of things, we got a variety of things to take a look at today. I do want to take a look at the Rangers. Saw another article today from Rangers media suggesting that a couple of the targets they could be looking at might both be with the Anaheim Ducks, and maybe they would consider offering Kaapo Kakko as a trade piece to make that happen. Now, we've talked about Kakko a couple of times here in the past couple of weeks. It's come up from various different reporters and writers of the New York media suggesting that the Rangers might consider moving Kakko if the big enough deadline deal comes along to improve this club for the playoffs. I don't think it's a case of Drury actually going out there and actively shopping Kakko or anything of that nature, but it's more of a case of, maybe if he's been probably getting asked about it, as he's having probably lots of conversations, I'm sure, ahead of the deadline, trying to figure out what his team's going to do, and he's probably getting asked about Kakko, which I understand. Like, guys like Kakko and Lafreniere before this year were really not nearly as established as you thought they would be. So, would they want to move one of them? The targets with the Ducks that kind of make sense for the Rangers would be a reunion with Frankie Vetrano, who's having a phenomenal season, and Adam Henrique at center as well. We know the Rangers probably would like to add both of those spots in their lineup if they can do it. Obviously, the Ducks would probably have to eat some money, but of course they have the option to do that. Obviously, on a contract that's a pending UFA deal is more likely to get retention on it than a term deal. But at the end of the day, the Ducks do have some flexibility in that sense, and the Rangers moving out Capo's salary would obviously, help a little bit with that process. Doesn't mean it would be exactly that, like a 2-for-1 deal, but I'm sure the Ducks and their young team would probably very much welcome a player like Kakko into their system and move on from a couple of veterans. Now, Vetrano may not necessarily get moved. He's having a phenomenal season. He's been a great fit there, so I understand the value. Kind of boils into what the offers are, but I don't think it's a given that he gets dealt. But we'll see if the Rangers and the Ducks do pursue conversations or not, but there is some speculation that a couple of those Ducks players are targets of the Rangers, and that Kakko could be a piece that they consider offering to see if they can get something done. Detroit Red Wings prospect Jonathan Berggren is still a player that's reportedly getting a lot of attention as well. A player who's not getting the usage that he would like. I think it's probably fair to say he's open to getting moved if it means more opportunity for him. It's believed that the Montreal Canadiens and the Ottawa Senators are the two teams that are most interested in this young player. Doesn't mean for sure it happens. I don't really see any other deals between Ottawa and Detroit or Montreal and Detroit. I mean, Detroit is better positioned right now to have a shot at playoffs than those two teams, but I don't know that they're necessarily going to go out and be making any big additions, and that those would be the teams they would talk to make it happen. You think a player like Berggren, who might be, open to getting more opportunity somewhere else, might be the kind of player they use as a trade piece to pull off their deadline acquisition. I just don't know that those are the teams that they would be targeting for those players. I guess it's always possible, though, in a sense that, I guess one player that Ottawa has that they did deal with Detroit and the DeBrincat deal was Kubalik. I'm not sure if they'd have any interest in bringing him back. And, of course, there's always Eric Brandstrom as well, who I know that the Senators likely would move in the right scenario as well. So I'm not sure if maybe it would be that type of deal, but those are the two teams reportedly showing the most interest in Berggren. In Montreal goalie Jake Allen, still probably the top goalie, in my opinion, from what I've seen, getting the most attention in the trade rumor mill. There's a lot of the other goalies who might be a little bit more of a bigger name or more established. As a starter right now, they're more expensive, and I just don't know that we're going to see a lot of those types of deals. We've, a guy like John Gibson, could he get moved? It's possible. I think a guy like Jake is more likely to get moved, though. Yes, he has a little bit of term in his contract, but it's only an extra year. Montreal could possibly eat some money on that deal, make it more reasonable. I know an article that came out today for dailyfaceoff.com made 5 different teams suggesting on who are the most interested in Jake Allen, who makes the most sense. And teams like the Avalanche, the Kings, the Devils, the Oilers, and the Hurricanes were the teams mentioned. And for the most part, most of them make sense. I don't know about Edmonton. I know that in some ways it makes sense, but considering how much they've been winning, we'll see how the next few weeks go. I'm not as convinced as I once was that they will make a move in goal. So we'll see about that. Obviously, they've already made some other additions, like getting Corey Perry in there. So we'll see what the Oilers do, but I think it might be less likely. And the Hurricanes, I think, might be a little less likely too, because it's looking more positive that there's a chance to get Freddie Anderson back before the end of the year as well. So I don't know there, but New Jersey, Colorado, and Los Angeles all definitely make a lot of sense. The LA Kings make a ton of sense. So we'll see. Could LA and Montreal pull off a trade? Like I said before, some players like Kaliev, Turcotte, and they have some other young defensemen that may not make it all to the NHL on the Kings roster. They may have to move because they have a lot. They do have a lot of young players there. So we'll see if they actually, pull off a trade for a goaltender or not. Wouldn't be shocking if they did, because I don't know that they have a lot of confidence in what's there right now. Since leading into the All-Star break, they finally got a win, but they had a really bad stretch there. And between the coaching change and everything else, like, will they continue, or how's things going to get stopped and turned around? It's going to be very, very interesting. But those are the top 5 teams. Out of the 5, I think 3 are more reasonable for Jake and Allen, considering the Avalanche, the Kings, and New Jersey. But like I said, a lot's going to be dependent on how these teams do in the next couple of weeks. I don't necessarily see a case where they would do that too far ahead of the deadline, but I could be wrong. We'll see. Crazier things have happened. We've seen some pretty big deals here a month ahead. So let me know your thoughts on all today's news and rumors down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.